You ready for me to start?
Not yet. A second.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, October the 12th, 2022. My name is Carla Guerra Moran, and I am the Secretary to the Fairfax County Board of Building and Fire Code Appeals. Before I turn this over to our chairman, Mr. David Conover, I will go over a few guidelines for the hearing. First, the hearing is being recorded. The recording will be available on our website after the hearing. Second, please identify yourself by first and last name each time you speak. And third, if you have any problems during the hearing, please email me at carla.guerra-moran@fairfaxcounty.gov. That is carla.guerra-moran@fairfaxcounty.gov. I will now turn this over to the chairman of the Fairfax County Board of Building and Fire Code Appeals. Mr. Conover, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carla. And thanks to other staff of Fairfax County Land Development Services for your efforts in setting up this meeting. As Carla said, it's Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. It's 10:10 a.m. So I'd like to open the October meeting of the Fairfax County Board of Building and Fire Code Appeals, at which we'll conduct a hearing on an appeal scheduled to be heard at this meeting. The board, to conduct this meeting and hearing wholly electronically, the board needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record to address an appeal that has been filed with the building, property maintenance, or fire official in a timely manner. Conducting this hearing wholly electronically will be a bit challenging, so I'd ask you in advance for your patience. I would note we had a face-to-face meeting last month in September, and I believe that was because the emergency that we had been operating under the last 2.5 years regarding the pandemic had been lifted. So the reason we're holding the meeting electronically this month is that I have COVID. I tested positive a week ago. I did not want to infect anybody. And so I thought it was prudent to do this electronically since we've been done it before. Because the reason we're doing the meeting electronically is really because I'm sick. I'm going to kind of forego some of the prior preliminary information that I read when we were operating under the emergency procedures, and hopefully that will be acceptable. Because each member of the board is participating in this meeting from a separate location, I've got to verify that we have a quorum and that everybody can hear everybody else. So I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each member of the board participating to state their name and location. And I would ask other members to pay attention to make sure you can hear that other member. So I'm going to call Amato. Are you here, and where are you calling from?
Amato Fernandez. I am here. I'm calling from Sterling, Virginia.
Thank you. Darren Shoemate?
Darren Shoemate's here. I'm calling in from Tyson's Corner.
George Page?
George Page is here. I'm calling in from my home in Herndon, Virginia.
Wayne Bryant?
Wayne Bryant is here. I'm calling from my office in Tyson's.
And Dave Conover calling from my house in Great Falls. Let's see. So at this point, I would pass the role of chairman to Darren Shoemate so that I can make a motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the board. I'd ask for a second and then we'll vote. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Amato. Anybody opposed to that motion? Okay. I further move that the board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated audio-video conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by calling 1-571-429-5982 and then hitting 9745-1472 pound. I'd ask for a second to that motion and then we'll vote. Is there a second?
Second again.
Amato, thank you. Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So we have one appeal today. I think that covers the preliminary. Hopefully it was okay for me to not get into the previous preliminary information about the emergency, because we're really not meeting at this point electronically because of the emergency. We have one appeal to hear today. I'd note that we have copies of all correspondence and supporting documentation. So if there are other members of the public in attendance, I have John Enos, is that correct? E-N-O-S, and Dan Wilhelm. There are other members besides those two and Carla? Anybody else? Okay. For this appeal, both the appellant and the appellee can appeal a decision to the State Technical Review Board. The application for appeal must be submitted to the State Technical Review Board within 21 days following receipt of the board's decision. Please note that a majority vote of the board is needed to overturn the building official's ruling. A tie vote goes in favor of the board, and as chairman, I will generally only vote to break a tie. So the order of the meeting will be as follows. The appellant will present a 1-minute summary of the basis for their appeal of the county position. The county will then present a 1-minute summary of the basis for their position. I'll try and summarize or frame the issue before the board. Then the appellant will be able to speak and present their case. The board will be able to ask them questions. The county will speak and present their case. The board will ask questions. The appellant will be given another opportunity to provide additional information in response to what they've heard from the county. And likewise, the county will be given an additional period of time to respond to whatever they've heard from the appellant. Having completed opening summaries and 2 rounds of testimony, I'll close the public hearing phase. I'll ask for a motion from the board. If we get a second, we'll discuss that motion and then we'll vote. So that's the process. And I would like to call those participating on behalf of the appellant, which is Roberta Cover, C-O-U-V-E-R, 4301 Pleasant Valley Road. I would like to invite them to make a brief statement about their appeal. They're not on the call. I would ask Carla, can you delineate, please, Carla, for the record, what you've done to communicate with the appellant? I know that the appellant did file the form, if you will, the appeal form with the county. And you know, subsequent to that, I'm assuming that the county has communicated with her and with respect to the hearing and the opportunity for her to present her case. Can you give us a brief summary of what you've done to communicate with her and try and make her aware of this meeting today?
Yes, Mr. Cooper, she sent her appeal, and that was, let me see. On September 28, I accepted her appeal and I sent her an email letting her know when the hearing was going to be, Wednesday, October 12th, today. And she never answered me. I sent her several emails and I communicated through email and through the system Plus. And I have not received any answer from her at all. I called her. I left her messages, voice message, and she never answered. So in the end, I sent her a certified mail with the specification that the meeting was going to be virtual, and sent her the link and everything. And yesterday, I saw the record from the post office that the post office tried to deliver that letter, but she did not receive it. She did not, or I guess she didn't pick it up, or she wasn't there, or she didn't open the door. But that's she has been non-responsive at all.
Okay. I just have one question. In the past, when you've emailed her, do you have any indication that would suggest that her email address or whatever isn't working or isn't valid or?
Yes, she appealed through Plus, and I use the same email that she used to appeal
Okay.
in Plus. So the email is good. It's the same email.
Okay. Thank you.
David, I have a question for Carla. Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
Carla, is there any chance at all that Miss Clover is up there in the conference room right now waiting for a hearing?
No, there's no chance. I'm looking who's in the chat, and she's not here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. And I'll give the other board members, Darren, Amato, and Wayne, do you have any questions for Carla or the staff regarding the efforts to communicate with the appellant?
I do not.
I do not.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to then turn it over to the county. Since we do not have the appellant or anybody representing the appellant, I'm going to modify the format and essentially, go ahead and make a summary statement and then present your case. I'll give that opportunity to the county in the interest of time. And then, when you're done, I'll have the board members ask any questions they have. John, are you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm John Enos. I was the investigator on the case at 4309 Pleasant Valley Road. Our agency received a complaint regarding the property, regarding numerous zoning, property maintenance, and turning out to be an unpermitted issues. During the inspection that was conducted on July 13, 2022, of the unpermitted nature, we found a wood deck that was constructed in the backyard. The wood deck consists of stairs also. After further research at the county records, it was found that the deck was built without permits nor inspections. And looking at through our satellite imagery, the deck was not built as part of the house. It was built around 1997 timeframe. Due to that fact, we issued a notice of violation to the homeowner on July 29, 2022, which was served via sheriff. Since then, the homeowner has appealed it, and it's our stance that the violation notice should stand and the homeowner should obtain the proper permits and inspections.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it for me.
Okay. Well, then I will ask the board members if you have any questions of the county. Amato.
Yeah. Is the violation the fact that the deck is built without a permit? There's no investigation has been done as to whether the deck complies with the county requirements of the county.
Well, one of the issues that we noticed when doing our inspection was that you can tell when certain items are not built per code. You can see by per county details, etc., what is not built to code. Like there's pickets that were too wide, the stairs were not built to code. So we could tell that it was probably an unpermitted case at that time, and our further research found that it was indeed unpermitted.
Let me ask a follow-up question. And this is only for general information, but if the homeowner were to apply for a permit, would the deck be evaluated by the code that was in effect when the deck was built, or approximately when the deck was built, as opposed to today's code?
Unfortunately, it would be today's code.
Okay.
Now, I would tell you that for her to get it up to today's code, it wouldn't be like an extensive project. It'd be mostly cosmetical, where as far as like adding some pickets here. The one code that kind of always that's current is the railing tie downs. It's this
Mhm.
bracket that has to be put on the decks now, and that's one thing I know she's going to have to do to bring it up to today's code. But to bring it up to code, it's not going to be an extensive project.
Okay, thank you.
Darren, questions?
Well, it sounds like, according to the county's paperwork that you were called out for a complaint. What was specifically the complaint that brought you out there?
The initial complaint was for two issues. It was for a structure that was unsafe, dilapidated, or disrepair. That was for the house itself. Also for an inoperable vehicle.
And then when you went out, you looked at it and you noticed the deck had some issues, and you did some research and decided to cite the fact that the deck hadn't been built with the permit.
That is correct.
Any other questions, Darren?
No.
George Page, questions?
Yeah. John, you said that the owner would have to bring the deck up to the current code, right?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, so I'm just trying to work through this for myself. My deck was built quite a while ago, and it was permitted, but it's not up to the new code. So why would a deck that's a lot older have to be brought up to the new code? Mine isn't.
Well, I mean, maybe the county maybe Dan can explain it better, but in our words, the deck was unpermitted. You did the right thing. You got it permitted, you got it inspected. When we go to a house right now and they have a deck, it was never there before. It was just built. And so therefore it has to be permitted and inspected. So it gets permitted by today's code and inspected by today's code. And maybe Dan can explain it a little bit better, but that's what the county's position always has been.
Well, I understand the need to get your deck permitted. It almost seems rather punitive, though, that they'd have to bring it up to today's standard instead of the standard that existed when the deck was built, if we knew, in fact, when it was built. I don't know, but you're sticking with the idea that it has to be brought up to today's standard, right? To a 2022 standard, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
This is Dan William. I can comment if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, do that.
Okay, so we don't do plan review for other than what the current code is. We don't go back and review and issue permits under prior codes. We're just not authorized to do that. I mean, state law wouldn't even let us do that. So, but if the issue is what he mentioned about the tie down brackets for the guards on the deck,
Right.
I mean, that is new in the code, but it's new prescriptive guidance in the code. The code requirement, the performance requirement has always been there. So the guards have always had to resist the 200-pound point load. So the difference is that the code was silent on how you did that. So that requirement was always there. The fact that they now have prescriptive guidance in the code is just a benefit to builders so that they don't have to engineer something.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I understand. All right, thank you. I have no more questions.
Wayne?
I have no questions.
Well, okay, this is Dave. I have a couple. I'm curious why I'm reading the Virginia Maintenance Code. So section 304.10 is very generic, but it talks about stairways, decks, porches, and balconies. and maintaining them in structurally sound and good repair. So that would apply to, any deck, my deck, George's deck, etc. So the first question is, in writing up a notice of violation, why wouldn't you have cited 304.10 as a metric for, what is safe and unsafe?
To be honest with you, there's two investigators on this case. I deal with unpermitted construction, and under the Virginia Construction Code. Investigator Amy Moxley is working the property maintenance and zoning case. My specialization's in unpermitted.
Okay.
I know she has written a notice of violation under the VMC. I'm not sure if she's noted that in her violation notice or not. I am unaware.
Okay.
But as far as my end, I issue notices based on if the deck is permitted and inspected or not. I hope that helps a little bit.
Well, it does, but it's, it's hard to separate the issues in my mind, because you've got, well, you didn't have a permit, and that's one issue, but it's tied to, what criteria are you, going to impose upon, a homeowner in terms of bringing up the code. And I'd further say in section 202 of the Virginia Maintenance Code, applicable building code is the one that was in effect at the time the building or portion thereof was constructed. And then when you go to section 103, in terms of application of the code, it specifically talks about existing buildings and the concept of, when the building was originally built, which goes to George's, question about retroactively applying the 2018 code when something else, when this was, in theory, put up 25 years ago. But, we're not going to solve that today, because the issue before us is the notice of violation is you don't have a permit and you didn't get inspections. But I kind of wish the other notice that dealt with the Virginia Maintenance Code was somehow tied to this, so we could deal with this at one time. Okay. Do you have, since we've asked questions, John, do you or others from the county have any other statements or comments to make?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to close the hearing, and I'm going to ask for a motion from the board in a second. The motion, a motion would be to approve or accept the appeal, or to deny the appeal, or I guess we've done in the past, we've done some continuance for whatever reason. So I'll ask the board members
David,
for, yes.
Before you make a motion,
Yep.
can I be clear as to what the appeal is exactly? What is the homeowner appealing?
I believe she's appealing that she didn't build the deck, she bought the house, and it was constructed prior to her moving in.
Yes.
Okay,
The
so
wood deck
she's-
had already been constructed at the time of sale on February 2018. So
Right, so her excuse is the fact that it was there and she had nothing to do with it.
yes, I think her position is, if I can restate, yeah, I own the property and I've owned it since 2008, but I didn't do it. It was that way when I bought the property, so it's not my fault.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Thank you, Wayne.
Okay, is there a motion on the appeal?
I move to uphold the appeal.
Uphold the appeal?
Uphold it.
Oh,
So you're agreeing with the homeowner in doing that, then, that the notice of violation would, in theory, go away if that motion passes, and things would just continue as they are. Is that what you're saying, Darren?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Second, anybody? Okay. Darren, I don't hear a second. Is there a substitute motion?
I move
Yeah.
that we deny the appeal.
Okay, and that was
Wayne.
Wayne. Okay, and who, is there a second?
Yeah, I'm going to second that. George seconds it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Well, I guess since since I moved to uphold the appeal, my concern is you know, at what point, when a neighbor complains about an abandoned vehicle and maybe a lot of junk in their backyard, because I did a little satellite view on Google Earth, and there was clearly a lot of junk on this deck at one point that was taken off before, before the inspector came. That, where does it stop? I mean, if somebody complains about me and then the inspector comes to my backyard, is he going to find that the detached garage in my backyard that was built, I think, in 1960, may or may not have been built with a permit, and then I'm now saddled with that permit. So that's my overarching concern.
Well, I agree with you on that, and this is not the first case that I know of that I felt where neighbors were basically going after what they thought was not right. But it's also been this board's responsibility to do that, and I think we've done a good job of doing that, of making sure that this wasn't some kind of punitive action from the next door neighbor, but it was truly a violation of county code. I think we've done a good job of doing that, and I think we'll continue to do so. So I hear what you're saying, but I think that's what this board does, is it sorts that stuff out.
If this is Dave, I would hope if this motion passes, obviously then it's back to the homeowner in terms of, getting the permits and inspections. But as we've heard, there is a parallel activity going on with the Virginia Maintenance Code and this specific, structure. And so I would certainly hope in at least as I've read the Virginia Maintenance Code, that there would be some, consideration of, okay, what do we need to do to make this deck safe and, have it perform effectively, and anyway. But the issue before us is, there's no there's no permit for the deck, and there's no inspections, and that's what they're supposed to get.
Right, but let me follow up on that a little bit, David. The point you're making, the point you made is a valid point. It's a really valid point. I believe is that you've got two situations going on, and this appeal is pursuant to the not having a permit, which by county history or by county practice, they only evaluate the current code, so
Right.
based on no permit. However, the Virginia code specifically says, which you read, that if that's a maintenance issue, you go back to the code that was in effect at the time of the violation or of the issue, and the county has a responsibility to evaluate that based on that code. And if they don't do it, then they have to adapt and read the code from 1996 and be able to apply that reference.
Yeah.
So I think, we're ruling on one little slice, which, depending upon what the other side of the table does, could have an impact on the solution to the ruling relative to the code being used.
Right. Well, hopefully the county is taking some notes. If an issue like this came up again with respect to an existing structure and, it's, compliance with the Virginia Maintenance Code, which would be required, whether they have, permits or not. And it's tied to this issue of you didn't get a permit for something. I, for one, would like to see either one notice of violation or two separate ones that are tied. If the way the county does this is they do notices of violation under door number 1 for you didn't get a permit and you didn't get an inspection. And then under door number 2, we're running around with the maintenance code, making sure everything is up to snuff with the maintenance code. I think if a property falls in both doors, I would certainly like to see either one notice of violation cover both doors, or have 2 separate notices of violation that are tied together so we can hear them together.
Well, let me ask something then. I'll ask David first, and the rest of you can chime in. Is it a violation to build something without a permit? Even if you build it according to code, is it a violation?
Yes,
Yes.
my understanding. I mean, it depends on what it is, but certainly a deck is a violation.
Just to build it without a permit, even if you build it perfectly according to 2018 code.
Yes, as defined by the local jurisdiction.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, well then that pretty much settles it, doesn't it?
yeah.
No, yeah, it settles it. The issue is if there's 2 violations, then the 2 violations have different potential interpretations as to how you get them solved, George. That's the only question. That's the only issue.
But doesn't this one trump the other ones?
I don't think there's a trumping. At least as far as I'm aware, from the way the codes are read, one doesn't trump the other one.
And I think it's important to go back to the original complaint. The original complaint was an inoperable vehicle and the state of the house itself. From what I remember Mr. Enos saying is that somebody was concerned about a dilapidated house. They go in and they determine that the deck wasn't built, with a permit, and that's an easy violation to write, and that's the deal. But the whole, and we don't get into the inoperable vehicles, but I mean, so it's like they're trying to find a violation and they found one. I mean, I'm not disagreeing that it's not built by permit and then that's a problem. The problem is how many structures, and we've discussed these and had cases, and of course every case is a little bit different, but there was the one, for example, at that like that mechanic shop or whatever it was, and there was a concern about not having a ramp. And we decided as a group that because it had been built in 1959 or 1960 or whatever, that was too onerous to make them do, even though the ADA is the law of the land and you've got to have accessibility. We ruled on the side of the appellant on that one, if I remember correctly. So my concern is, if a neighbor wants to be, a nosy neighbor or wants to, get his neighbor or whatever, they call it in. And again, it's a complaint-driven system. And I have called the county on my neighbors for certain things. It's just like it goes back, like you said, George. It seems like it's punitive. They found something, so let's do this. Where I think what Dave said, I think a violation of the maintenance code is one that I would support. But not having a permit on something that was built 20 years prior to you building it is problematic.
I think one of the comments, and this goes back to Dave's comment, is if I'm the county, my thought would be run 2 parallel, because if you tie them together and we find that, it's a maintenance issue, but it's not a code issue, then all of a sudden it throws the whole thing out for them. And so that's why I think that the logic would be, my thinking is they send through the code violation and they send through the maintenance violation separately. And if the code, if we said, hey, the code isn't, it was there, it's fine, whatever, then they get another bite at the apple to go to the maintenance code, which is less onerous for the owner, though in this case, not significant. I think my second point is, I think what George mentioned earlier is true, that, Darren, we have a pretty good record, I think, of ferreting out the ones where, the county has gotten a complaint about one thing and gone out and said, oh, there's peeling paint. And we've kind of put those to rest and said, yeah, I mean, you guys can't do that. But and something like this where it's definitely there's code issues and such with the building or with the structure, I don't know that we can do that.
Well, and ultimately, part of our concern, and we're all professionals on this team, is public safety. And, you know, even as I'm looking at this thing before, the concern you would have is that they have a big party and there's 4 people on the deck and somebody leans against the rail and they fall through and they fall and they get hurt, or even worse. I get it. It's just, you know, unless the county has a 10-year cycle on inspecting decks. I mean, how many other unpermitted decks are there out in Fairfax County? This individual just happened to get caught. So,
Well, the issue before us, and I probably took us down a rabbit hole that we didn't need to go down, but the issue before us is there's a notice of violation. You don't have a permit. You don't have an inspection. And we have, you know, a motion and a second to deny the appeal, which means that the thing goes in favor of the county, which would go back to the homeowner to say, yeah, it's time to get a permit and an inspection. So unless there's any further discussion on that particular issue, I'm going to ask for a vote. Amato, are you in favor of denying the appeal?
Yes.
Okay. Darren.
I have been swayed. I vote to deny the appeal.
Okay. George.
Yeah, my answer is yes to the motion to deny the appeal.
Okay. And Wayne.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, the motion to deny the appeal is votes 4 in favor, 0 against, and chairman not voting. So that conducts our code appeals hearing for the month of October. Thanks again for your time, and have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Take care. Thanks, Carla.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.